Okay, and there's no other members and attendees? We've got everybody we think we should
I
have?
think we're everybody here, aren't we?
We've got everybody on the committee, and it looks like there were maybe additional 20 attendees.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is the rescheduled Beach Advisory Committee meeting. Our apologies if there was an inconvenience. All of us were without Wi-Fi on the 25th, which was our scheduled meeting, and we rescheduled it as soon as we could. So let me get an attendance initially. Kate Burke.
Here.
John Dykstra.
Here.
Joanne Guston.
Here.
Jim Mulvihill.
Here.
Carol Sherman.
Here.
Jen Wasserman.
Here.
Mike Weston.
Here.
And I'm here, and that makes a full committee membership. We have a set of minutes from July 20th. Any corrections to the minutes? A motion to approve?
I
So moved.
Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Okay. Kate?
Yes.
John?
Aye.
Joanne?
Aye.
Jim?
Yes.
Carol?
Aye.
Jen?
Yep. Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay. It's our usual custom to open the meeting to the public for items that are not on the agenda. So it is open now. We have 34 participants, which includes those on the VAC. I'd like you to limit your time and questions like 2 minutes, so that everybody who has a question or a comment has a chance. Mike, what do you have? Anyone? No hands up.
No hands up.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Jen's hands up.
My hand's up. I just had I had a comment from somebody who's not at the meeting but is a beach, and I don't have the agenda in front of me. I apologize. So I don't know. Are we going to talk about traffic and traffic safety on the agenda?
There were some comments from email from Carol Sherman, and I have them as items that we can discuss. We can discuss them now, if you like, as opposed to waiting till later. And they included the parking on New Biddeford Road, and I'm not sure there's anything we can do about that because those parking spaces, like 24 spaces, are part of the ordinance. I recognize that it makes it difficult to drive a New Biddeford Road because most people have 2 wheels on the grass and 2 wheels on the pavement, and it narrows down the cartway. So I think it's an issue, but I just don't see how we can do anything about it. And the other one was Dyke Road, Kings Highway intersection, and do you have to use turn signals there? Who has the right of way? There's one stop sign coming from the west end of Kings Highway. No other stop signs. Seems to me, at the very least, if you're coming down Dyke Road, whether you're going east or west on Kings Highway, you should signal. And then the question was, okay, somebody coming from Kings Highway going um, coming from the east going west, do they have the right of way? So anybody want to comment, Jen?
Yeah, so would it be appropriate for us to recommend a three-way stop? I mean, there's so many kids and so many pedestrians and cyclists. Why wouldn't it be good for everybody to stop there?
Yeah, Kate?
Yeah, I support Jen's question or recommendation. You know, it's not like asking for a big expense there. I think it's a big safety issue, though. As the population increases, I always have to stop and think, God, which way do I have the right of way here? And we've got a four-way stop at the Jeffries Way, New Bedford Road, Kings Highway intersection. This to me is an even bigger traffic area and confusing area. So I would be fully in favor of recommending to the town or whoever. I think that's a town issue, not a state traffic issue. Am I right, Laurie?
It's a town issue.
That
Uh,
an investment of two more stop signs isn't going to kill anybody to stop for a minute.
Yeah, my concern is that placing a stop sign coming down Dyke Road is going to be difficult to have it visible. That road bends way around, and my fear is we put a stop sign there and somebody doesn't see it, particularly if they're not used to it, and someone else thinks it's a three-way stop and you have a problem. I think it needs to be looked at. I think it's a great idea, but you really need to look at it and see if it's practical. It may need an overhead sign, and I'm sure nobody wants that.
One of the problems is I think you would eliminate a parking space in order to have the stop sign visible.
Well, that's a small price if safety is if it really can be visible. My fear is that it won't be visible enough, and people won't see it, and that'll create a bigger problem than exists now. But an engineer will tell you.
Even a two-way stop would be better than just a one. Yeah.
Right, but if we wound up eliminating a parking space, the last parking space there is a handicap, and then the one next to it is probably where the stop sign would be located. We'd have to, because of the ordinance and the 173 parking spaces, we'd have to find a place to move a parking space, and we've gone through this before and haven't been able to find any.
You couldn't extend down Dyke Road? Is there a physical barrier to the last spot on Dyke Road? I'm not clear there is.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, John.
That's all the kinds of
Obviously,
stuff. That's the stuff we can look at. Yeah.
if we make the recommendation, the town will ask the chief of police or the deputy chief to make a recommendation on it.
Right.
So,
Richard?
I'm sorry, Joanne.
I think going down Dyke Road, John, it narrows a little bit. So it's almost impossible to get the car off the road with any kind of parking space any further than it is. And if you have a three-way and if they can't see it perfectly, at least the other two are stopping anyway.
Yeah, but they're assuming that Dyke is going to stop. That's the problem. And they're going to go assuming Dyke is going to stop, and the people that are coming down Dyke don't see it. So, I mean, a traffic engineer is going to know. They'll see if it's safety or not.
Yeah, one of the
Smarter people than me can figure it out.
Yep.
Yeah, most people don't use the turn signal when they're coming down Dyke Road, whether they're going east or west on Kings Highway.
Well, that's a ticketable offense. I mean, really, we all go to driving school. We all know.
Yeah, no, but you know what? It's an assumption that Dyke Road leads into the eastern part of Kings Highway, and that there's no need for a turn signal. But
For the 70 years that I've been there, that's what's been so.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question here in terms of the procedure here, process? It sounds like we have some consensus that we all think it might be a safety issue, and particularly with the traffic and kids and stuff there. The question is it logistically possible? And that's probably not something for us to decide, as you pointed out. So at this point, rather than discussing it a lot more, do we whether we have to make it in the form of a motion or something, or a request. How do we do this to Lori, and Richard, to the town to say, can we ask you to look into this?
It's a motion to request the town to place two stop signs, one on Dyke Road and one on Kings Highway, so that it's a three-way stop. And it'll be then up to the selectmen whether they hire an engineer or just go to the police department, which is what they would likely do. And then decide whether or not they want to put the two stop signs in. Lori, is any different than that?
So it would go before the selectmen, and if they were inclined, it would have to be an amendment to our traffic and parking control ordinance, which would require posting of notice in a public hearing, and then they could take action.
All right, we did this before the stop signs on Wild District Road when you come in from Community House Road and Proctor. Those two stop signs, the BAC recommended it to the town. The selectmen asked the chief of police and the deputy to look at it and approved it, and then amended the ordinance.
I'd like to have somebody look at the feasibility first, Lori. Could that happen before we go through the whole process?
Wouldn't it happen that way anyway? Or
Well,
not?
no, you'd go through the process and then they'd look at it, I think.
Oh, I
is
see,
what I'm
yeah.
saying.
Well, I don't think it's going to be looked at unless we make a recommendation, and then it's sort of out of our hands.
We'll make the recommendation to
proceed.
look at it.
Well, I mean, why don't we just do it as one recommendation, and the selectmen will decide how they're going to proceed. All it takes is a motion on our part.
I will move that the committee recommend to the Board of Selectmen to investigate the possibility of making the intersection of Dyke Road and Kings Highway a three-way stop.
Can I amend that? Can we have them recommend that the selectmen look at the feasibility of making it either a three or a two-way stop, depending on safety or feasibility or whatever? Because I don't want them to say, no, we can't do a three, so we stick with just one. I think a two-way stop is better than a one-way stop.
Can we eliminate the feasibility and just make a recommendation that they install 2 or 3 stop signs at the intersection of Dyke Road and Kings Highway?
Good to me. So I'll amend that to say, to recommend that to the Board of Selectmen to make the intersection of Dyke Road and Kings Highway a 2 or 3-way stop.
Second,
Discussion?
Any discussion?
Yes, Richard, just while we're talking about parking on Dyke Road, does anyone have any concern about the increased parking that's beginning to occur along the right side of Dyke Road, just as you turn off Route 9? There'll be sometimes 4 to 6 cars there. And there's also, they park across from the motel too.
Jim, we have a motion, if you want to bring that up after we vote on the motion, that's fine. I know
Okay.
that's been an issue.
Well, since we're on Dyke Road, the selectmen were looking at Dyke Road, they may as well look at the whole road, but that's okay.
Well, okay, let's deal with our recommendation. Any
Okay.
other comment from the committee?
Yeah, all right.
Kate,
Yes.
John,
Aye.
Joanne,
yes, please.
Jim,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Okay, so Jim, you raised the question since we're talking about parking and what have you. And I believe that Lori was at a meeting when it was raised before. Apparently to avoid a parking sticker, people are parking on the end of Dyke Road, close to Route 9.
And New Bedford, both.
Yeah, that's right.
In New Bedford, those I haven't seen, Jim.
I've seen a number of occasions people parking in. I mean, not as often, but I've seen them at the end of New Bedford as well.
And there are no parking signs posted.
It's also a favorite place for bicycle groups. They meet there and then they take their rides and they come back, as well as trying to avoid the other people who want to come to the beach and avoid the parking sticker.
Hmm.
Two sources
Well,
of people.
There are no parking signs
Right.
on either stretch, either one of the roads, that stretch that we're talking about. So what's your pleasure or recommendation to the select?
I
What-
don't
what-
really
what
have a
is the law?
recommendation.
Well, one at a time, Michael.
I just like to ask a question. What's the problem? I've been there when those cars have been parked there, and I don't see a problem. If we're talking about somebody avoiding a parking sticker, that's not a good reason to say no parking there. People walk there and walk, park there and walk, good on them. I don't have a problem with it.
I actually agree. I agree. I was wondering what's the problem.
No, I didn't say it was a problem. I
There
said,
isn't
are we
one.
concerned about it? That's
No,
all I said.
There isn't. There isn't one. That's my opinion. That's just
Yeah,
mine.
okay.
So it wouldn't be an issue to you if the parking extended all the way down to where the permitted parking is.
No,
Well,
it would be a
it
problem.
can't do that. It can't do that.
Like, you give an inch, it just depends on if you want to make.
No,
it
no,
smooth
John,
like
you
that.
just, the configuration of it, the area that Jim's talking about, you could park, you can pull off of the pavement, and there's a dirt strip. And then as you go down, there is a small house.
Yeah, I
and then if
understand.
you go-
I know where it is. I
Okay.
understand. I understand. But now, is there any ordinance that prevents parking on pavement or off of pavement, or I don't know what, if you can park anywhere, can I pull off Route 9 and park my car? Maybe I can. I don't know.
Anywhere where there's not a no parking sign.
Far out.
There is a sign, John, that says you cannot park on the pavement. Both wheels have to be off the pavement. I don't know that they always are, but that sign is there near the legal parking, areas with the sticker, the
Yeah.
designated parking spots.
Where the parking is permitted on Dyke Road, the last parking space beyond that, there's a sign that says no parking beyond this point. So it's not going to be a group trying to park all the ways down Dyke Road. The only question is the area where they're parking. Jen?
Well, I guess I would feel right now, it doesn't seem to have been a problem that's caused any, haven't been, the only people we've seen parking have been off the road. And I would think that if in the future it became a problem that people were starting to do that a lot and it was creeping down Dyke or creeping down so that people were partly on the pavement, then we could revisit it in the future.
Well, there is that hotel motel there, and at the moment, I think it's not operating. There have been occasions when it was operating, and it's under new ownership, but when it was operating and they had events, there was parking that was on the pavement, overflow parking from their parking lot. And depending on what the new owners are doing with that, and if we have a problem, we can revisit it. But I know that in the past that it did obstruct the movement of traffic because the overflow parking from the motel on Dyke Road was
Which side, Richard?
I don't know. I'm not gonna-
it was on the same side as well, it's going towards Kings Highway. They were parking facing down there. I mean, right now it's not operational, and then we can address it at some later point.
And Richard, the one other thing I've noticed, and I didn't notice it so much this summer, maybe because of slightly lower populations, I don't know. But it wasn't only on the Dyke Road side of Kings Highway, but in past years, I've seen people on nice summer days parking on Goose Rocks Road down close to Route 9 and then walking across and down.
Yeah, and that's the same thing. You
They're
can
off the
park
pavement.
off the, you can park off the pavement there. There are dirt areas there. But if, you know, if we don't have any issue, on the, Goose Rock side, the other side of, Route 9, I don't know why we would even think about it.
Okay.
Anything else on that, Jed?
Not on this, but also related to traffic. I just wanted to give some feedback from some people that I spoke with, community members. One feedback was somebody who lives on New Bedford Road who was saying that the speed bumps have been very helpful and appreciates that they have slowed down the traffic. And another person mentioned to me that they would find it helpful if that if we would consider the concept at all of any speed bumps on Kings Highway, because what they're saying is that they're finding that people are really flying down Kings Highway at times, and they've been on their bike and felt in danger because there's all the cars parked there, people are opening doors, and then there's people speeding. And anyway, so that was a suggestion made to me by a community member.
So Jen, to piggyback on that, I have had requests for speed bumps down Wildwood because they feel that that's a raceway and people there. So now that we've put a couple speed bumps, everybody wants them everywhere to slow down all the traffic. I don't know what the feasibility of putting any more are. I was at the beach more this summer than I've ever been in my whole life, which has been such a gift. I didn't see a lot of speeding on Kings Highway, and I live on Kings Highway. But I will tell you, they do fly down Wildwood. So, and if we're looking at speed bumps, I mean, everyone wants one.
That came up, last summer as well, people requesting, speed bumps. I don't know, the expense and the number that you would have to have on Kings Highway. And if you're going to do it on the east end, what about the west end? I walk down there, and the speeding on the west end is far more than it is on the east end. And I use Wildwood quite often. I got to tell you, with the kids on the bicycles and people walking, you really can't speed. I mean, it has a posted 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, but
Well,
people,
Richard, I think you shouldn't speed down there. You certainly can, and just because it's posted, I don't think that's making a lot of difference to a lot of people.
Yeah.
no, but the number of times that I've been on Wildwood, and sometimes it's 2, 3, 4 times a day, because I avoid Kings Highway getting to where I live. I don't see many people speeding. Very seldom do I see anybody who's even doing 25.
I'm getting reports otherwise, but
Yeah,
from people who actually live on Wildwood. Just passing it on.
okay. Anything else on traffic before we go on to the agenda?
Richard, you do have a hand up in the audience.
Okay. Okay. Edward, would you just identify yourself and where you live?
Right, it's Edward and Roberta Kramer. We live at 14 Crescent Avenue. We've been here for almost 6 months now, since we came up in March. Way back as early as March 11th, when we got up, we would walk on Wildwood almost every day with our 2-year-old grandson and my daughter, and walk on Kings Highway a lot. And I support everything that Joanne said, because we have seen, I mean, I was amazed when I first saw the speed limit sign on Wildwood at 15 miles an hour. And I would say oftentimes, and many times, it's contractors. And I easily would see people go between 25 and 35 miles an hour. And I am amazed, and thank God it hasn't happened, but I am amazed that there haven't been accidents with children riding their bikes or old people like me walking a 2-year-old grandson. And Kings Highway to me is as bad. It not on a Saturday and Sunday, but during the week, we walk up to Kings Highway, obviously to go to the beach, and oftentimes walk all the way down to the east end, walk all the way down to the west end the next day. And I see it as a significant problem. I was going to ask when I initially put my hand up before we talked about speed bumps was where's the enforcement? I hardly ever. It seems like years ago I would see police cars roaming the streets here more often. I see very little of them now. So please, if you'd consider something, whether it's more enforcement, more police presence, more periodic, I'm sure they're not going to do radar guns because I think it just has to be a visual check or put up the speed bumps. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Thanks. Mike, do you want to put Rick on?
That's good what they do.
Dave is here now.
We want to put something in.
Okay.
Rick, could you just identify where you live?
Actually, it's Elaine Roberge, and we live at,
Oops, got muted.
I'm sorry, you wrote,
We lost the wrong guy.
yeah.
There's Rick.
Elaine.
it's Elaine Roberge. I'm using Rick's phone.
Okay.
Okay.
You live on Wildwood.
Yep, 36 Wildwood.
Okay.
And what I had a comment about the ramp. When I go down to the beach, that is the access that I'll typically go use. And I will sit with 2 other nurses, and the 3 of us are just look at the ramp, and it's a red flag, fall risk, because of the way the sand has eroded away. So if you're not familiar with that ramp, you could just keep walking and it just kind of falls off. There's not a lot of sand at the end of it. And also, as the summer has gone by, there is a big dip where the 2 pieces connect. And so for anybody using a wheelchair or a walker, that's really tough access. And we were wondering what happened to the old wooden ramp.
Lori, do you have any idea? I just remember the one that we have there now.
The old wooden ramp was not compliant, and towns and cities have gone to this kind of ramp that we have now.
So a question is, who is responsible for like going and putting sand in to make it safe, the ramp?
Well, in the past, I have asked the community safety officers to let us know if it needs some additional work, and then we usually have Public Works go down and do that.
So maybe that's what we just need to do.
Lori, could you put it on your list to call Public Works to?
So it's already on my list.
Okay.
Thank you, Elaine.
Okay. Alrighty. Dave, Michael, is there anybody else who has their hand up?
Oh, I just have one more comment. This
Oh,
is
sure.
Elaine Roberge. We were actually just driving home, coming down Dyke Road, and Rick said, are these new no parking signs? So there are several where you were talking about where people are parking. There are now no parking signs. I'm not sure if I've never noticed them before or if they're new. So the issue that you were talking about, I think, is kind of a moot point.
Lori,
Just
do
an
you,
FYI.
thanks. Lori, do you know, did Public Works just put some no parking signs there?
I would have to check with them. I don't know.
Okay, because I haven't noticed them, but that isn't something that I'd necessarily pay attention to.
All right, thank you.
Alrighty, thanks, like,
So sorry, I just have oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, this is Steve Hanna at 7 Crescent Avenue, and I'd like to bring up the subject of orphan town properties, which I've talked to Paul Hogan and others about, and I'm glad that Lori is on this, in this group here. But I've noticed that there are several properties around Goose Rocks Beach that are listed on the tax property map as town and don't seem to be maintained or anything done with them. And one example is, the most obvious one is the Dyke Road access to the beach, which is just completely growing up with invasive species like bittersweet and everything else you can name from the invasive species list, and it needs to be cleared back. Another example is at the extension when Crescent Avenue ends and there's an extension over towards Belvedere, and that does not have Town Road on it. It would have Crescent Avenue on it, but it goes behind the Tides Inn parking lot. And it's like a 30-foot wide right-of-way to Crescent Avenue that is listed on the tax maps that, again, is just completely overgrown and seems to be on the side towards us. It looks like one of the abutters has built a gravel parking lot over it. And on the side towards the Tides Inn, it's just a jungle that is grown up with Japanese knotweed, bamboo, and that sort of stuff. And the local landscapers just throw their junk in there. And people also, I noticed the Tides Inn also parks cars there next to the road. So my question is it possible to the town, I don't know who the official is, to look at the maps of Goose Rocks Beach area and identify which are the town properties and give some sort of answer to the question about should these be maintained by the town or what's happening to them? It looks to me like several of them are just been kind of forgotten about and are left to grow up into jungles. Thank you.
thanks, Steve. Dave, is there anyone else?
Did Lori take an action on that? Lori, you okay with that? Can that happen?
I'm receiving feedback as part of your meeting.
Then I'd like to say something a little more definitive, Richard, if we could, addressing
Yeah,
that issue.
you know, I mean, I'm familiar with the one at the end of Crescent, and since I lived on Belvedere for more than 20 years, it's always been, it's a paper street extension of Crescent, and it has never been maintained by the town, and maybe there's some encroachment on it at the moment. I'm not sure about the access from
So I just want to be
Michael.
clear, John, and to everyone that I don't receive any input that these items are going to be brought up, and I'm not prepared to discuss these items. I'm here at the goodwill of the Board of Selectmen to your beach meeting. I take note of all these things, but I'm not gonna enter into a discussion at them when I am surprised by the feedback.
That's great. So, Richard, you're
Well, let John first.
can I just finish this? Are we tabling that? Are we not going to take any action?
Well, I think, you know, Lori has, I'm sure, made a note of it, and I think it is something that we could put on a
I just asked Lori if she took a note of it, and she said she's just listening, and there's no action unless we take action.
I said I take note of all things that are brought up at these meetings.
And she does, John. I don't know.
Okay,
what-
okay,
I don't know where
good.
you're coming from.
That's what I was trying to ask. Thank you.
She does
Obviously, I was
every
misunderstood.
single meeting. She takes notes. She follows up. I don't know where you're coming from.
Excuse me, Mike?
Well, hold it, guys. You know, what Lori said was if an item comes up that is not on the agenda, she may not be prepared to discuss it, and this is such an item. And I know she'll make a note of it, and we can address it at a future meeting.
I mean, Crescent Avenue is a paper street. And paper streets are lengthy town and statewide issues that we could spend a whole meeting on. But it's been a paper street. We did receive a complaint this summer about landscapers dumping grass there. We bought some new signs and put them up and told people not to dump areas there. I did talk with the Tides, and I asked the Tides to keep an eye on it and let them know about the signs going up. And that's all I know about Crescent Avenue at this point. Regarding Dyke Road, I, we'll have the town, it is not an abandoned, it's a right of way that we own to the beach. And, if it's not on someone's list, then they probably haven't gone in to take a look at it, but I'll have Public Works take a look at it. So as I hear these, I will take note of them, but just because someone brings it up doesn't mean that I'm prepared to discuss it thoroughly or have action taken. And some of these to me are just comments from the public, and so they're choosing this way rather than to call me on the phone or let me know ahead of time.
Okay, there was someone else who had their hand up.
Thank you very much. This is Art LeMay. We're at 176 Kings Highway on the west end. And I just wanted to reiterate Richard's comment about speeding on the west end. And I recognize, Lori, you'll just make note of that, but the speeding has been quite ridiculous this summer. So I know it was mentioned. I just wanted to reiterate that it's a problem with the walkers and bikes and the traffic. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Okay, anything else before we get to the agenda, Jen?
Sorry, I just, as you know, I'm relatively new to the committee, so I'm still trying to figure out how this works. So because several people have talked about speeding on the east end, west end, and Wildwood, do we take action? Do we table it? Do we say we're going to ask for input from it? I mean, do anything that, because it's been brought up by a bunch of people? Like, how does this work?
Well, okay, we have this on every meeting during the summer, and usually the chief, whether he does it himself, which he does often, or assigns a patrolman, and he'll go out and see whether there is speeding. West End Kings Highway, it's 20 miles an hour. The speed limit on Wildwood is 25 miles an hour, not 15. It is posted 15. It's been probably posted that way for years and posted by the residents. Same thing on Community House Road. All of the roads outside of Kings Highway are 25 miles an hour.
There shouldn't be.
Pardon me?
That's a piece of information I didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a piece of information that I really wanted to talk about, but the residents have put it up to get people to slow down, and I think it's effective to some extent. But just recognize that the town doesn't have the right to reduce speed limits below 25, and we went through this on New Bedford Road. That's why we have the rumble strips there. I mean, we petitioned the state, and they said, well, we'll check it, and we may tell you that the speed limit should be higher, and that's their usual response. But so in some instances, residents have took it on their own to put up signs that are not enforceable.
Thank you.
All right, can I move on to the agenda?
Yes, please.
Okay, Kate, you're on the bulletin board.
The bulletin board is up there. We have put up items of general information, the brochure, the information about the plovers, information about the dog rules. We've put up the shark warning, items that are, of general information about the beach. And we have not been separately putting up the water testing results, but we have put up, for example, the information about this meeting, how to get onto it, and the agenda. And I guess one question I have is whether people see that as a point of really viability or great use during more of the summer months. And should we continue in any way, shape, or form to try and post things there over the winter, the off season? I am going to get the key to it back from Stedman. See, when they close down, I'll stop in on Labor Day, just so all the keys are accounted for, and I'll give him one back next year, when they open up. But there's no point in having a key there mixed in with, if his key collection looks like my key collection, you never be able to find it next summer. But I guess the key question to put out there is, I can't tell you how many people actually look at it, but I'm glad we've got it there, and hopefully we'll find it useful going forward. But do we continue posting over the off season? I think there will be more people here than perhaps in other off seasons, as more people are occupying second homes, et cetera, for longer periods. We saw that in March when the population increased for obvious reasons, and probably will stay more like that this fall at least. So I throw it out to people. I can go either. We still have Facebook to post things on, the Facebook page to post things on, et cetera.
And I think it's very reasonable to continue through September, perhaps October. But in the winter, especially once the snow flies, I don't think they even plow that, so no one's going to be looking at it.
People didn't
Okay.
park there.
So
The question,
September, October, and then start up again March.
Okay.
But
I don't know if there's an issue. I don't think we have to set a time frame. If there's an issue that comes up, which we see as maybe important to residents or visitors, if we have the bulletin board, why not post it?
Sure. As long as
The
I can get
question
to the
is-
bulletin board.
Right.
if the store is closed though, does anybody go there?
That's
Would
my-
anybody
that was
see
my
if the
question
store
for
is
off
closed?
season.
So maybe it really only needs to be when the store is open, because otherwise, I have to say, I'm on the committee, but if I wasn't, I'd be unlikely to go to the parking lot of the store to look at the bulletin board. If I
Yeah.
wanted information, I'd go online.
Jen, I think this is the inaugural year of the bulletin board, and as people get used to it being there as a source of information, I think you may find more people going, let's look at the board. So I don't think this year's numbers, are going to predict whether it's working or not. But certainly, snow flies should stop our posting because, again, not plowed, no stores not open, that's it.
Okay, well, I'll continue, put things up, particularly meeting notices, assuming we'll have maybe another meeting sometime in the fall, put that up, but, and I guess I can take the shark warning down after the water starts to get even colder. Fine, it's fine with me, and I'll start looking at it again, and as soon as we can get to it in the spring, whenever there's information. Okay, but looks good there.
Thanks, Kate.
Okay, the next item is the Dudegrass staking and kayak storing report. I know that there was an email from Paul Hogan to some of you about the number of kayaks that have been stored, I guess, on the Conservation Trust property. And I know that there is a question about the Audubon Society taking their staking down. So who wants to address it? Jen, was you the one who wanted it on the agenda?
I didn't particularly put on the agenda. I can address what I know, although some of the emails came from other members of the group. My understanding is that Audubon is probably planning on taking the signs, their stakes down in the next week or so. The staking seems to have really helped. I mean, we've got very good dune grass growth this year, which may or may not have, probably would have happened anyway, but I think the fact that we've staked it has helped encourage people not to put their boats there and not to walk. The question is, do we need to restake the Audubon stuff for September or not? And I know that the other report was that the kayak storage has been wildly successful. We've had a ton of kayaks being stored there. They're all lined up in a way that don't interfere with walkers, and it's great. And I can report, since I live on Jeffrey's Way, there are no unauthorized kayaks at the end of Jeffrey's Way, but many, many less. Last year there were 30, and there's probably 6 right now. So it's definitely an improvement. So I think both the dune staking and the kayak racks have been awesome. Question: do we need to go and take all the stakes down, or do we just leave them up for the winter and then sort of repair them in the I don't know. We've never decided what we're doing with them. And do we need to stake the little bits that Audubon have had, or do we say, hey, it's September, we're not going to worry about it?
John?
I can address the kayaks, but I think Jen, are you looking for an answer to that, or you're just saying that's where you are? Yeah.
Well, opinions. I mean, the ones I've put in front of my home, honestly, I just leave year to year, and then in the spring, I pull up the ones that aren't good anymore and I redo it. But whatever people think, if people would prefer that we all go and pull them all up again for the winter, I mean, we can do it.
I think the odds are they won't survive. I think that's a fair assessment, that they would probably be washed out by some storm during the winter and spring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry, John.
Well, I was just gonna say, for the kayaks, I'm 99.9% sure we can store those at the trust. So we'll organize to get those pulled. They do need to be pulled, probably late September. I don't know. We're gonna wait. We don't want to pull them too soon if people are still kayaking, or leave. We'll work that out and store them at the trust and have them reinstalled next year.
Great.
Kate?
My feeling about this is that I would like to go forward without going back and adding staking to the areas that Audubon is pulling up. I'd like to, before we go through that work, because I do think that, once we get to maybe Columbus Day or something like that, when, I think the population might decrease and the use of the beach will decrease somewhat, unless we have an amazingly warm fall, that we probably should go out and pull up the stakes, because as John points out, I think most of them will get washed away, and, we may as well keep the stakes somewhere over the winter and use them again next spring. I'd kind of not want to go out and do additional staking at this point unless we see a problem developing. See what happens at the East End or Carol at the West End. If we did not do any separate staking down there because Audubon had done so much staking. That's such a plover area, so that's kind of my feeling. Keep an eye on it in September, or once Audubon has taken their equipment away, and see if we can not have to go out and restake the areas that then are exposed. But I agree. I think it's worked well, and I think the kayak rack installation has been brilliant. I think it's really encouraged people to put kayaks in one particular area in a certain way, and all of that. So that by itself has helped the dune grass. So
there was an issue about the West End and maybe a dozen or more kayaks in the dunes there, Carol?
Yes, there are 14 as of today, and and they are in the dune grass, and I can actually speak to that because the dunes were over the past year significantly higher in that area, and as the kayaks get put on them, the dunes get lower and lower. And I've seen where the chief, I have pictures of it, everything, has tagged the kayaks, tagged them on, I wrote it down, August 26th, and they're still sitting there, which is my belief that kayaks spend 75% of their time on the beach and 25% of the time on the water.
That's generous.
That's too high, yeah.
80%, right? On the beach,
Please.
20%.
90.
I drag it in and drag it out and get the wheels. And so I know I'll lose and I'm an old person about it, but I think it's a question. I don't know who owns the specific property by the right of the way. As you go, for those of you who don't know the West End, as you walk onto the beach, the kayaks are all to the right. And I know part of it is Rachel Carson, and I know they do not allow kayaks on their property at all. But
So can the police chief do something other than tag
tag them all. They've all been tagged.
Can they be dragged down? Can they at least be dragged off the grass to protect the grass?
Well, I'm not going to do that. I don't
Well,
know.
apparently it's Rachel Carson property. Lori, I know the chief has contacted Rachel Carson. Is there a response?
We have not heard a response from Rachel Carson at this point. He's tried to reach out to them a couple of times. We did tag them last week, and because no one has come, we believe they are, as Carol said, people who don't frequent the beach, maybe don't even live near the beach. I don't know. But we thought since it was just last week, we'd give it a little time for the tags to take effect, and we're continuing to monitor them.
When you say for the tags to take effect, I'm not sure I understand what that means.
Usually when people get a tag, they contact us.
Okay.
They either remove the equipment or they contact us, one or the other.
Okay.
And neither one has happened.
Another one has happened.
So what's the alternative if you don't hear anything by next week and they're still there?
Yeah, so we said in the beginning, we're not going to confiscate kayaks or equipment. So
Can
we
we
have
move them off the grass though?
So we have taken, so the public, taking private property, I'll talk to the chief about it, but I'm not going to make any promises beyond tagging at this point.
I also like to speak about the dune stake and twine at the West End. A couple years ago, Sherman and I did it ourselves. We called the DEP, we got permission, and we did, because we'd lost so many of the dunes out there, we staked it. And within 2 weeks, the storm came and all that work was gone. I believe that we will lose stake and twine if we put it up at the West End, but it has been incredibly effective this year. And we have gained probably 20 feet of dune grass from having the stake and twine up there this year.
Would there be any benefit of putting a kayak rack on town land on the West End for next year?
I don't know the answer to that because I don't know where the property line is.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture where these are. Would you say to the entrance? So are they around on the river? So they're on the
Yes.
river side?
Yeah, they're around. If I knew how to do it, I would have sent it to David because I went and took the pictures for everybody, but I didn't know how to.
But it's just inside where that Boston whaler is always moored, so it's right there.
Okay. How am I doing here?
Yeah.
Very good.
I see it, but I really
Just
can't.
to the right of the path, John. Just
Yeah.
when you come up the path, just to the right of the path.
When you
So-
come out the path to the
To the
right, to the right of the path is Rachel Carson property. And
Right.
straight ahead is, I believe, the right of way as well as the sewer easement, if you look at our tax maps, because the sewer easement goes across to Marshall Point.
Yeah,
Yes.
And so that is, based on what our GIS shows, it's partially on the town right of way and on the Rachel Carson land. I don't believe it's on anyone else's land. It's not like the town has real property there per se, I would say.
Lovely.
yeah, I can see it. I just can't really place it, Carol. So, but we could put a rack. Could we get permission to put a rack? That's the question. I mean, we certainly can put one if we can get permission to put one.
If Rachel Carson gave you permission.
I think we have to get contact. I agree with Lori. I think we have to get contact with Rachel Carson. I know Ward Furett, who used to be the director, and maybe I can contact him and he can have more, he knows the right person to contact. In fact, I'll do that.
We know they work, so let's try to get one there if we can for next year.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Lori, the kayak was successful this year in terms of selling parking stickers?
Yes.
Yes, the kiosk we sold, this was as of last week when we were going to meet. But we sold, as of last week, 2,400, a little over 2,400 daily passes. And we sold 44 weekly passes. We didn't start out selling weekly passes at the beginning of the season from the kiosk because we were concerned about sun damage to the paper receipt that stays in your windshield. So we did try that for a while to see if the sun would eliminate it, and it didn't. So we changed the machine to sell weeklies as well. I think all in all, from a reliability standpoint, it worked well. We did shut it off at 6 p.m. until midnight so that people would not buy a permit when they didn't need one. And the only thing I would say is we did receive some complaints that cars would pull up and park next to it while they got a permit, and some cars would go park first. I asked some of the community safety officers, and they said they saw people do both. So perhaps additional kiosks would encourage people to park and then go get the permit. But that particular kiosk, I thought, worked well this summer. People were able to get one while they were there. They knew they could get a parking spot versus buying one at the police station. And I believe that the general store sold probably a little over 1,700 daily stickers.
Any consideration of putting a second one up further towards New Bedford Road for next year?
I think from a town perspective, we would certainly consider it. It is a financial investment, but we didn't need to put electricity at the machines because they're solar powered. So we do have to, pay for the machine. And Richard, some of the neighborhood's concerns about where we place these. But beyond that, I would say we're open to that next year.
Don't we have another consideration? I mean, I understand that the people that operate the general store may not want to operate it again next year.
General store or the sale of stickers?
Well, it's the general store, and then the question is whether
I think that would be a question for them.
As to whether or not whoever is there, whether it's the current owner or a new owner, whether they want to sell the stickers, and that would mean probably a kiosk at that location, somewhere's in that area.
Exactly.
Have we had any complaints about the kiosks? I mean, we look at all the complaints we had about traffic. I mean,
I've heard a few complaints from people in that area about basically what we talked about, cars stopping there instead of following what we hoped was going to be where they go find a parking space and then walk to the kiosk, etc. Then instead they're stopping and, like they did before, buy a parking sticker apparently first. I mean, I thought if we did add either one at the general store, if they did not want to actually do the parking stickers within the store, or certainly one closer to Jeffrey's Way, that would perhaps alleviate a little bit, encourage people more to go find the place, not park in the place and then walk the short distance back to the kiosk.
I think we should look into the feasibility and if we have the money to get another kiosk, one or two for next year.
I would agree.
Well, I think we're just going to have to keep an eye on the general store and whether or not that will be a source for stickers next year. And it's, we're obviously going to have to wait, but the town should be prepared to at least add one kiosk if the general store is not going to sell the stickers. Okay, can we move on then? I'm not sure, Lori, whether you have anything from the chief in terms of violations, parking, dog violations, traffic, and
He-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
He did give me, I don't know that he did give me, I think we were planning on doing that at the end of the summer.
Okay. How about the question about distancing? Have the CSOs said anything about the use of the beach and whether distancing, social distancing has been an issue?
I think that for the most part, they think people have been good about it. I think, up and down the coast, you'll hear managers talk about at high tide, and Goose Rocks is probably more blessed at high tide than a lot of these other beaches. That at high tide, people can get a little tight, I've heard. But for the most part, I'd say 80 to 90%, I'm hearing good things.
And what about the issue of dogs not on the leash after 6 p.m.? That there've been so many complaints about that, including from some of the members of the Beach Advisory Committee.
So, I mean, they have made a concerted effort, to be out there and be out there after 6. And when they, do find someone, they address it, but, it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen.
Okay. Next item is water quality and testing. And John, you had requested this, and I think it's primarily to talk about the signage that has been proposed.
Exactly. What came out of analysis of this and past year's testing were that there were 3 principal things we wanted to communicate to the public with regard to bacteria and the safety of the water. One was that if the ratings are above the 104 threshold, that there's a way to notify the public of that fact. The other is to inform the public that there is a persistent possibility, if not probability, of high bacterial counts at the mouths of the rivers at low tide. And the third piece was that after a heavy rain, we have consistently seen the probability of high bacteria at the rivers and sometimes at the beach itself. So the idea was, how can we communicate all 3 of these facts to the public? And what we came up with was a single sign that then would have 3 warning pins. I will, should I share my screen? I sent this around in a PDF to folks, but for the folks that are watching and I'm disabled. So is it possible? If not, I can just describe the sign. Dave, can I share it? Thanks.
Here's the sign.
Should have warned you, Dave, sorry. I am in. All right, share and put this. Does that work? Excellent. So this is what we came up with. The idea is that it would hopefully in a single sign, which would replace the single sign that's there. So we're not increasing the number of signs at the beach. So this would replace the warning sign, the water quality sign that's currently there that has the Velcro area for any specific warning to be posted. This sign the permanent sign is what you see in white. And then when there was one of those 3 warnings to be issued, the little tags would be hung beneath, metal tags, color-coded, so people would have a very quick reference as to which of the of the alerts is being posted. So our hope is that the BAC would recommend to the town that this sign be put in place of the existing swimming advisory sign.
I think it's a good solution. I looked at it before and I think it's a good solution. Just choosing the words though, John, is gonna be the issue.
The words down below for the little signs.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good thing to do. It's about time, I think.
John, I
agree
want to
with you,
thank you
John.
for replacing the sign and not adding another one.
Yeah.
We worked hard for that.
I thank you.
Good.
How
Any
big
other-
is the sign, John?
Just out of curiosity, who's gonna be maintaining this? In other words, running out, putting out the little tags when necessary? Is that the health department or?
That's our health, as I understand it, Lori, am I correct that that's Allison's group?
Yeah, they do that currently, so this isn't a change for them. What's the change is right now we have one contamination warning that includes the beach and the rivers. So this is dissecting that. So most of the time it's the rivers, and so we're trying to bring clarification to that.
Can I just ask too, where is this sign going to be located, or signs?
Every entrance, everywhere where the swimming advisory sign is currently located.
Okay.
So that's
How
it.
big is it gonna be,
Looks
John?
good.
And that is an important point to bring up, that what the Maine Healthy Beaches have agreed to do is they've divided Goose Rocks into now 3 entries. So there's a separate entry for the Batson mouth, for the little river mouth, and for the main beach, which is tremendously helpful, because before, if the rivers were above, the whole beach got stained, if you would, with the no swimming warning. So now we have 3 separate categories tracked in the official record and being able to be broken out to the public.
Okay, let me back up, and maybe I didn't quite understand what you said. In terms of placement, are you saying at every entrance to the beach?
Correct.
Okay, fine, because lots of us, you enter, say, the Proctor Road area, and then you decide to get up and walk your kid down
Oh,
to
sure. No,
Little River and paddle around there at low tide. So
no,
thank
precisely. No, no one will get to the beach without walking past one of these signs.
you.
Well,
Okay.
John, what are you going to do on the west end? Because there are private rights of way to the beach. You could post the sign on the far end of Kings Highway on the west, but there are a number of clear access points that they're on private property, but people have easements, and people off of the beach use those.
Yeah, I would love to see a sign there, but I don't know what that would involve in terms of permissions.
Well, obviously, it will involve the permission of whoever owns the property, where the right of way is. But that's something to think about. The other question I had was, are you going to post the signs on both rivers? I know the town had ordered some signs to be posted on the Batson and Little River in terms of rainfall, and I don't know whether those are up yet. The last I saw in communications, they've been ordered.
When you say on the river, where are you thinking that the signs were being posted?
I thought they were being posted at the far west end on the Batson, and the far east end on the Little River.
In the sand, or on the access where people would walk out?
I think they were going. I'm not sure. I thought it was going to be on the sand.
I didn't know that.
Lori, am I correct? I know that there was some dialogue with Allison about signs that she had ordered.
She ordered 2 signs that were similar to the sign we're talking about now, and they were placed One of them we found was placed incorrectly, but these are gonna replace all of that signage.
So it will just
Where
be-
were they placed? Were they placed on the sand near the river?
One was placed, I believe, at the west end, and one was supposed to be placed at Jeffrey's Way, but she said that it was placed right by the river entrance. I think where the clamming flat signs are.
Okay, well, if it's Jeffrey's Way, that's one of the access points that you're talking about, John.
Correct.
But what we decided was that this new sign would better reflect, and we could replace the current signs we have out now. And one thing that the people we engaged in on the water quality discussion noted is that we really should have them at every entrance because people walk to the rivers from other entrances. So we're looking for this sign to be placed where the current swimming advisory signs are now.
Richard, should this be a motion that I make that we accept this sign and recommend to the town that they be posted where the existing swimming advisory signs exist today?
That would be appropriate, yes.
I would
And
second that motion.
You're really recommending to the Board of Selectmen, not the town, but.
Thank you. To the Board of Selectmen.
I still second it.
How big
any-
is the sign? How big is the sign, John?
TBD, but it's not going to be any larger than the sign that currently exists.
Okay, I'll show you a picture again of the west end. Those are your two signs.
So so the bottom sign is the one about the rain, right?
Right.
Well, this one sign is going to replace both of those, and it would be no bigger in the white part, maybe a little bit taller than what you see on the top sign. So you're going to have less signage visible. That's a good thing.
A very good thing.
Very. And even if it could be smaller, it's a very good thing.
Just
I
to be
think you're-
legible, just to be legible and obvious, I think is what the goal would be.
Okay.
John, you can pick up a little bit by eliminating the names of the rivers, and that would lessen the number of lines by one.
Yeah, it would contract it to one. That's a thought. It's just that some people are so familiar with those names. The thought of the group was that they wanted to have them stated. But I don't know if it was a strong opinion.
Well,
Well,
it's, if you say that they're at the rivers at either end, and most people won't know what, they know that there's a river there, but they won't know and they won't care what the name of that river is.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Just a thought.
John, in the second paragraph where it says elevated bacterial levels can occur, did you have any discussion at all about putting the word also can occur as a follow-up from your first paragraph?
It's a thought. I will certainly carry that thought forward. I don't think it detracts or adds, to be honest with you, but
Okay,
being
just
neutral,
curious.
I'll carry it forward.
all right.
Any further discussion? So we have a motion that's made and seconded to recommend to the selectmen the placement of a sign similar to what's on was on our screen.
Thank you,
So
Dave.
moved.
It's already been moved and seconded.
Oh, sorry.
Kate,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Joanne,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
Jen. Mike.
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right. At our last meeting, there was a reference to UNE doing a GIS of the beach. And one of the professors at UNE having some of her students have projects that would delineate in one fashion or another the beach. The question is, do we want to recommend to the selectmen that the town go forward with coordinating some activity with UNE that provides information on the beach?
Okay, can somebody just flesh that out a little bit? I know I should have the minutes in front of me, and I do remember references to you should get in touch with this Professor so-and-so. But could you refresh my recollection to what that was about, even though I'm generally behind cooperating with UNE on almost anything. What they're doing up there is interesting.
Yeah, I think there was a further discussion of it. John, was it at the Natural Resources?
It was at the meeting when we discussed the bacteria, yeah, and the thought was to provide some goals for the consideration of the UAE GIS education program for communicating issues with the public. I think that's the main thrust. There's kind of two. One is to organize the data that we have about the natural resources and the bacteria concentrations and the infrastructure of the beach into geographic layers so they can be analyzed in a GIS. That's the science side. Then there was a communication side where those could then be used to ask questions, get answers, and help in policy decisions and communications with the town.
Yeah.
So those were kind of the two thrusts. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Okay.
So I would say it's a little early to be recommending anything at this point. Allison and I did meet with John Dykstra and Steve Hanner and John Crowder and Megan Sims from the Maine Healthy Beach to talk about some possible ideas. The next step is we're bringing our ideas back to the professor from UNE to see what, if anything, those students may be capable of doing. And so I think we need that feedback from them first before we, move on.
Makes sense.
Makes sense to me too. I don't think it's something we need to really do anything formal about at this point.
Kind of an information thing here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion on it then? No. If not, the next item is subcommittees of the Beach Advisory Committee. In the past, we've had an ad hoc committee that dealt with the dog ordinance. So it was a limited, finite mission, and we had members of the public that participated in the committee. And generally, the BAC does not have authority to create a subcommittee, which is a standing committee with membership from the public. So if we're talking about subcommittees, we certainly can have subcommittees with BAC membership as we've had in the past. Communications, parking, traffic safety, what have you. And we've had those in the early years of the Beach Advisory Committee. We have a natural resources subcommittee, and there is a issue and a problem in terms of that being a standing committee with members of the general public participating. And I know that Kate has done some work in terms of suggestions of committees.
Mr. Paper Towel.
There are, so we at least two subcommittees, and let me make a suggestion as to both of them. If we wanted to have a standing committee with members of the public, we'd then have to petition the selectmen to create such a committee. And if you're talking about natural resources, Then in terms of defining the mission of that subcommittee, we'd have to be really careful not to step on the toes of an existing committee in town, which is the Conservation Commission. So a simpler way for both the Communications and Natural Resources Committee is to have committees made up of members of the BAC and have volunteers that assist that subcommittee. So for example, in the Communications, we have people that sort of tend to the Facebook. They're not members of the Beach Advisory Committee, and we could have them as volunteers. We have two people in Goose Rocks who have for a good number of years assisted in terms of water quality, and that's Steve Hanna and John Kreuter. And we could have a Natural Resources Committee where Steve and John were volunteers with the committee, with the subcommittee. In all cases, though, whatever the subcommittee decides is an area that we need to take some action, then the report would be from the subcommittee to the Beach Advisory Committee making a recommendation to the selectmen, as opposed to a subcommittee dealing directly with the town, whether it be the manager or the selectmen. It would come through the Beach Advisory Committee. And really, that's the way our ordinance pretty much sets it up. We're advisory to the selectmen, and whatever subcommittee we have has to go through the Beach Advisory Committee in terms of making recommendations to the selectmen.
So if I'm just fully understanding it, what you're suggesting is that if we want to have these subcommittees, that we have them, that we're made up of Beach Advisory Committee members with volunteers from the community as needed, but they are not officially members or voting members of the subcommittee. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
The alternative would be to ask the selectmen to create a permanent committee, and I'm not sure whether they would be receptive to that. I mean, certainly the Natural Resources subcommittee raises questions about whether there's any conflict in the mission with the mission of the Conservation Commission. And it just avoids having to deal with that. What we're talking about are things peculiar to the to Goose Rocks Beach, and I think we can control it that way. I mean, I would see. I suspect in terms of the natural resources, Jenna would be you, John, and Carol. Because the three of you have expressed some interest in that. Now, what would be in Communications? I mean, my own yes, Joanne. I would think it would be you and Kate and maybe Carol as well. And if you,
Carol, you're on all the committees.
My pleasure. What about safety? I think we still need to have
I think so too.
safety.
I think so too. I know when I first came on, it was Mike who was the sole, I think, the whole committee.
No, it was I was there, and it was Mike and me.
Oh, okay. No, I think that issues relating to traffic and safety, as we've even discussed tonight, are still with us, and we should continue to have that sort of subcommittee or area of interest. And I'm certainly willing to be on that. I mean, I don't think I have much to add to Communications anymore, but I'm happy to be on that too. If whatever, I'm most grateful as far as Communications goes to the Facebook page basically being more or less administered between Meg Berry, who originally helped start it, and Audrey Lakin, who is doing amazing work now, both beautiful photography and just keeping on top of that and understanding the mechanics of a Facebook page far better than I ever did. And I don't mean to throw Carol under the bus, but I think she'll agree with me by saying far better than she ever did too. So
Are all of you in agreement with how I've outlined the subcommittees and how they would operate? Namely, if they wanted volunteers to assist, then whatever recommendations they have would come through the Beach Advisory Committee, and then the Beach Advisory Committee in turn would decide whether or not it would be a recommendation to the selectmen.
I think it's a great idea, and I think we should name at least 2 members of our committee on each subcommittee tonight. So we have 2 members.
Great.
Okay.
I don't know if John and Mike have to be, but Jim, I know you got a full plate. I'm with 2 kids and a wife to care for, but I mean, why don't we get started?
Can I just ask one quick question there? When you referred back to the time we had an ad hoc committee, as in developing or amending the dog ordinance, and that had members of the public as part of the committee. So that, I'm just going back to understand the mechanics, and this, if that happened going forward, if we came up against a situation like that, there was something where we wanted some people from the community to actually be part of discussing an issue or looking at an issue, we would then create an ad hoc committee, recommend to the selectmen that they go ahead and let us create an ad hoc committee with and members of non-BAC members part of it.
No, I think we could have an ad hoc committee as we did with the dog ordinance, but the issue that the committee would be addressing would be a finite issue. In other words, it would not be a standing committee, it would be an ad hoc committee, and I don't believe we would have to go to the selectmen. We could do it, but it would have to be Beach Advisory Committee members in charge of it, and organizing it, and as opposed to the members of the public going their own way.
Well, this is my question, though. I don't quite, I mean, I'm trying to understand how the town prefers to work on any board or committee. And I'm hearkening back to the ad hoc committee that dealt with the dog ordinance. So the issue is we should not have members of the general public on any, actually as subcommittee members, rather treating them simply as volunteers.
And I don't know that their function would be any different. I think we would label them differently. Like Meg Berry and Audrey are volunteers on the communications committee dealing mostly with the Facebook. So it doesn't change anything. We're simply labeling them differently.
It's just semantics.
Exactly. That's the way I hear it.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with I totally agree with the idea that, that any subcommittees of this committee should be populated by committee BAC members.
No problem.
If we have other people offering assistance or helping, like, John and Steve are involved in the water issues, and other people, Paul's been involved in a lot of, environmental issues, etc. Those people would not be operating under the guise or projecting themselves as members of the Natural Resources Subcommittee. They're volunteers to it, or to, whatever committee or subcommittee, ad hoc committee we have going forward. Okay, I got it. It's really more a matter of semantics there. I guess I was finding that I was having some difficulty understanding how we did it in the past versus are we doing something different now?
So you want to?
So sorry, so there's a legal thing that says we can't have subcommittees that have community members on it?
Well, we're an advisory committee. We're an advisory committee, and we don't have any authority to organize a standing committee with members of the general public.
Okay.
I mean,
Perfect summary.
our committee is in some ways rather unique in being an advisory committee, and also the way our members are voted into office. So let's go forward then. You want to set up the committees. Let's see whether we can get all of them and have just one vote as opposed to having a vote for each one. Natural resources, I had suggested Jen, John, and Carol. Any comment from them or from the other members of the committee?
Happy to do it.
I'm
I
fine with that.
accept.
Okay, then the communications committee would be Joanne, Carol, and Kate. I had mentioned you, but you said that you didn't need to be there, so.
There's more to it than that. She does the bulletin board and it does a
Oh,
lot of
I
things.
forgot about
So,
that.
Right, so.
I
Hey,
don't mind being on it. I subcommittee doesn't, I just
Yeah.
didn't know who was doing that.
So,
That's right.
so we've agreed at Joanne, Kate, and Carol.
Got it.
And then we talked about safety, traffic issues, and Mike, are you willing to be on that committee?
Of course.
I'm willing to be on that committee too.
Okay, and if there's an issue, I'll be happy to participate as well. Okay, are there any other subcommittees that we should talk about? Michael?
Who is the third person?
Me.
You, me, and Richard.
Who's you? Me.
Kate.
It's Kate Burke.
Hey, thank you. I didn't say.
Okay, that probably is enough for right now. If anyone thinks about another subcommittee that we should address, either a standing subcommittee with members of the BAC or an ad hoc committee, we can put it on the next agenda. So that's the suggestion for the subcommittees, and can I have a motion on that? And a second. You know the members.
Okay, I
So
move
moved.
that we have standing subcommittees in these areas of interest: natural resources, traffic and safety, and communications. Do we have to name all the people attached to them?
No, but I can name them so that there is no question. It'd be John, Jen, and Carol for the natural resources. It would be Joanne, Kate, and Carol in communications, and it would be Kate, Mike, and me in terms of traffic issues. So,
Okay.
a motion?
The entire motion that includes the names.
Okay, and a second?
I second that one.
Alrighty. Any discussion?
No.
You do have a hand up, Richard.
Well, we have a motion and it's been seconded. I'd like to get the vote on it before we have somebody from the public participating.
Well, that person has a comment on this.
Yeah, I think don't we need to hear the comment before we vote?
Let her hear the comment.
Well, that's fine. Dave? Okay. Paul?
Thanks. Hey, it's sort of a question for Lori. When the Natural Resources Subcommittee was formed, I want to say 8 years ago, in the first year of the Beach Advisory Committee, it was formed and it was discussed, and it was appreciated that we didn't have members on the BAC who wanted to put the time in, and there were many members in the community, and we asked for members of the community, and people stepped forward and joined the committee. Basically the same member. A few people have left over the years, but some people have been there ever since the beginning. And I'm just wondering what has changed. The committee has reported regularly to the Beach Advisory Committee with everything it's done, with everything it's proposed over the years. Some of the reports have been done by myself or other members. Some have been done by non-committee members. And I'm just wondering what's changed in the law that, you know, I guess Larry Mead was the town manager sitting on the committee when we formed it. Did he miss something that we weren't allowed to have community members on committees? I realize it's a bit of semantics, but there are, you know, just wonderful people in our community with all kinds of expertise. It's just incredible, and who want to contribute. And there were, you know, 7 people on the committee, and we have often asked people in the community to help out. So I'm just wondering what's changed. Did we do something wrong back then?
Well, I think that every day is a learning experience, as I'm sure you would agree, Paul. But I can't speak to Larry, but when I was first here, my memory is that the subcommittees were basically members of the original committee. And then I think the committee started to grow and get more additional members. One of the issues is in the formation of a committee, in terms of town government, we need to have authority to form the committee, and we need to have direction and definition about what the purpose of the committee is. And so in terms of the Goose Rock Beach Advisory Committee, you know, I think they have every authority, and I have discussed with Amy Chow in terms of setting up subcommittees within their members to view individual issues or areas of interest. But in terms of forming a committee that includes other members outside of that, I would say no committee within the town has that authority.
So I guess we've always done it wrong. I remember Mr. McDonald, who lived on, who complained about the traffic problems.
Peter
And
McDonald.
we decided to form the first safety committee, and we asked, and we invited him right at the meeting. I forget who was chair then. We invited him to join, and he did, and he was a good contributor. There were 2 or 3 on the first safety committee who were not members. There were 1 or 2 members of the committee, and then we would report back and make recommendations, and the beach committee would follow through, accept or reject.
Well, Paul, I don't think that's really going to be a whole lot different in this structure that's been put forward. The times that I've attended the Natural Resource Committee, I believe those same individuals are going to be absolutely part of anything that Jen, Carol, and I would be doing. Certainly yourself and Steve and John and Tom Bradbury and other folks that have had some very solid and consistent input. So I don't see that this is really going to change a lot moving forward.
Paul, do you have any other comments?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments from the members of the Beach Advisory Committee? If not, we have a motion that is made and seconded. Kate?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Joanne? You?
Aye, I know.
Jim?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay. an update on the Facebook, and is that you, Kate, or is it Carol? Or Joanne? What?
Well, I think the update is that I think we mentioned at the last meeting that Audrey Lakin has agreed to step into the position of sort of editor-in-chief.
Volunteer editor-in-chief.
Pardon me?
Volunteer editor.
Volunteer editor-in-chief. And because the Facebook page has grown in viewership, whatever, significantly, we wanted to streamline it and reduce the number of people that were authorized to post so we didn't get into some chaotic situation. And she has done a wonderful job since they've moved here full-time, doing, first of all, she's an amazing photographer and very familiar with how a Facebook and technology operates. So we asked her if she would volunteer to sort of be the day-to-day person. Meg is still the, again, volunteer, since she's no longer on the committee, administrator. And between the two of them, they are doing a fabulous job.
That's it. They've updated, the mission statement has been restated, the pictures continue. We did have a small discussion on would it be appropriate to post the availability of the flu shots coming up. The couple of us talked about it and we decided, yep, that's appropriate since it's a definite benefit for many, many people. But other than that, we keep it to Goose Rock speech, news, interests, those kind of things, light and nothing heavy.
Right.
The end.
Carol, Plover report?
Yes, I do. I am very pleased to be able to give a happy report. A positive note in what was a very difficult year is actually a very fun thing to do. According to Maine Audubon, Maine beaches hosted a record of 98 nesting plover pairs in 2020. And these pairs fledged a record of 199 chicks.
Wow.
The resulting productivity of just over 2 chicks per pair is well beyond the stated 1.5 for recovery goals. Don't you love statistics? And it has been, which has not been hit since 2011, when there were only 33 pairs that fledged 70 chicks. FYI, last year Maine fledged 175 chicks, and that was a record year. Thank you, everyone. Least terns had colonies in Kennebunk, Higgins Beach and Scarborough, and a small and light colony in Seawall Beach and Phippsburg. In Kennebunk, 130 nests fledged 65 chicks. Higgins Beach hosted 128 nests and fledged 50 chicks. And a small colony formed in Seawall Beach and Phippsburg later in the season, and these 7 pairs fledged 1 chick. It is their first tern fledgling since 1999, an exciting triumph in spite of only 1 chick from 7 pairs. As for Goose Rock Beach, the piping plovers have now left Goose Rock Beach for the Bahamas and southern United States. Goose Rock Beach officially had 6 pairs of piping plovers, 9 nest attempts, and fledged 13 piping plovers. We tied with Wells and Crescent Beach and Kennebunk. Goose Rock Beach fledged 11 last year. Ogunquit was a big winner again this year with 30 fledglings. Popham Beach came in second with 25, and Scarborough came in third with 21. Again, we did beat Old Orchard Beach. They fledged only 11. We did not have any least terns nesting at Goose Rock Beach this year. They came, they hovered, but never landed. What we see now are all the migratory birds as they fly thousands of miles from Canada and the Arctic to South America. Goose Rock Beach is one of their staging areas for gathering and feeding. It really is a treat to see these birds. For those interested, I recommend checking out York Audubon Society. They have great Goose Rock Beach walks. The last one, they identified 42 different birds on Goose Rocks, and they have a very interesting newsletter, Carol Sherman. And it's going to be like my last one until March. You can take me
Thanks,
off.
Carol.
I have a question. We're doing so well with these little plovers. Is there any feeling for how close we are so that these little guys are not endangered anymore?
That's a very good question. And
Well, we're doing so well. That
I'm not very good at statistics, but The productivity is over 2 chicks per pair, which is well beyond what the stated 1.5 for the recovery goals. So I would say, I don't know, pretty soon.
Maybe at some point, if you talk to the Audubon, you can ask them, what's the goal? What is the threshold so that these little guys are no longer endangered?
That's a good question. I
Thank you.
will.
I worked on it all day.
Oh, good.
Okay, the next item is a discussion of signs, and Joanne, that was you.
I worked on that one all day too. So when I was down, I did trot myself all the way east and all the way west and looked at the signs. I'm not entirely sure which ones you can eliminate. I'm in love with John's replacing and not adding 2. I don't know how to get around the COVID signs, which were laminated and will probably come down. The only one I thought was maybe past its prime was the drone. I literally have never seen a drone. I suppose a couple of years ago there was some there. Well, maybe you've seen them. I haven't. I'm more annoyed by the plane in the Geico commercial that it flies around than I am drones. But
I have to say that I've already, just today, I got a comment from a resident around here with a picture of somebody trying to launch a drone on the beach in the wind yesterday. Very concerned about it. So I don't think we're totally out of that. I would love to say it's not necessary anymore, but.
I would too. I would too. I don't know. It might be more attractive if there was like a bulletin board there we could change out, but you know, the more signs there are, the more visual clutter there is, the least, the little, no one pays attention.
I agree.
Yeah.
At all.
I think the West End is a mess and a perfect example of what a mess of signs can do.
Yep.
And what I have found that everybody, whatever their cause is, they put up a new sign.
Yep.
And that sign goes in front of everybody else's sign and it becomes a little bigger. And then another person comes up and does another sign. And just so we're not whining about it and thinking about what we can constructively do. I personally love the wooden posts, but I think the metal ones are much more practical because I think we can put 2 or 3 signs on a metal post and we can take them down and we can change them. This year maybe is different than every other year. What I found is that it was very flux. We had to put up a sign about sharks. We had to put a sign up about COVIDs. We had to put a sign up about water. And so we just added another sign here and we added another sign here. If we had 2 metal posts, you know, where you can, what do you call it? Bolt and nuts and bolts. You attach them by nuts and bolts and you can take them down by nuts and bolts. And they're all the same size. That's why I asked you, John, what size is the water? So we don't have, you know, a game of who's going to have the biggest sign. That's just a thought. But anyway, there you go. And we could take down least required on the West End. I don't think it means a thing.
Who, just out of curiosity, who, say some group comes along or wants to put a sign up, do they have to get a permit from anybody? Is it from somebody in the town, or how do all these signs proliferate? I know the big one that it lays out most of the rules of the beach that are at various entrances, but we've worked so long and hard on, I'm not sure where a lot of the others come from.
The signs came from, I would say over time, the swim advisory signs came from part of Maine Healthy Beach program. The conglomeration of rules on the one big sign was one of the first things the Goose Rocks Beach Advisory Committee did to try and eliminate other signs. The drone sign came from a discussion at the beach committee, where the beach committee talked to the selectmen about the need to regulate drones. You know, the COVID signs are up for this fall. We are in hopes that we will not need them again. Or they're up from this spring, I should say, not fall. And
Land flats.
the shark sign came up because we did did get shark sightings both in Biddeford and Wells and wanted to warn people. So they were again temporary in nature.
But I hear you say that basically it's somebody within the town government is the one that authorizes or puts up those signs. We don't have people just.
In case they're not yard sales or not, this
Yeah.
kind of sign.
That's what I
I
thought.
think maybe the biggest thing going forward is, should we feel the need to post, God forbid, another sign? We need to think about replacing and updating rather than adding yet another sign. Because honestly, the visual clutter is horrendous. And I don't know why, heading to the West End, congested area, all it is, no parking, congested area. There must be 8 signs that say that on the way down. It seems overkill to me. I'd rather see the trees, I'd rather see the beaches, I'd rather see the gardens. I think the signs are just more visual clutter, and the more you have, the less they're paid attention to.
Right. I agree on that point for sure.
Yeah, so I guess going forward, what I would like is, if anybody feels the need for another sign, that it needs to replace or be an addendum to an existing sign that's already there.
I think
Most of the signs have originated from the Communications Committee and recommended to the Beach Advisory Committee. So
Before I had it.
So my suggestion is, if there's going to be any adjustment in terms of the signs, and a recommendation that the Communications Committee take a look at it and come back to the full Beach Advisory Committee, and we can discuss it, and maybe make some recommendations to the town, or if they're our own signs, change them or eliminate them.
Okay.
Any further discussion on?
You and I and Carol need to talk about this, and I'm intrigued by Carol's idea too of the.
I have a couple more.
I'll bring my new dog.
Oh, good. Can't wait to meet him or her.
Okay, the next item is just an information item in terms, we talked about it the last time. Recycling is going to start the first week in January, and there are going to be some educational material that will be available. The idea is that the recycling materials are clean, as opposed to taking a jar that had pasta sauce in it, pouring the pasta sauce out, put the cover on, and put it into the recycling. It causes all kinds of problems. So just pay attention to it. Will be forthcoming. I'm not sure, John, Lori, somewhere's in November, early December, some educational material.
That's correct. And in November and into December, we'll be on the road with y'all.
Okay. And in terms of other things, there was a mention of the flu clinic, and that is at the North Street Station on September 16th from 9 to 12. And there is a form to fill out beforehand. You can get it at the town's website, and it's a form from Walgreens, and it's just saving time going through the process. And everyone should be aware they have to wear a mask, social distancing, and have your health card with you. The other thing is two others. We seem, for whatever reason, to have a lot less people responding to census questionnaires than neighboring municipalities. And if you haven't responded to the census, you should do it. It is important in terms of not just counting people, but the distribution of monies, and also in terms of states, the distribution of congressmen, but probably not. We have 2 districts and we're not going to have any more than that, but
May
it's
have
important.
less.
Pardon me?
You may have less. Because
Well, that's a
real
I don't
possibility.
think the population will go down that much.
Well,
There is the clinic and the absentee ballots. Just pay attention to responding. Anything else? Any other business?
Yeah,
Okay, Paul.
Hey, thanks. John, thanks for putting the recycling on the agenda. John and I serve on the Solid Waste Committee. And I just wanted to point out one thing that most people don't understand when we talk about what contamination is. It's not a little peanut butter or a little mayonnaise left in a jar. That's not a problem for EcoMaine. The problem is styrofoam and things that aren't on their list of things to recycle. So when we return, it's much less important that you clean out every jar absolutely perfect and waste a lot of water doing that. They don't really care about that. They should be clean, but not perfect. But it's the bad stuff that you put in that will cost the town money and increase the rates. Thanks.
thanks, Paul.
Anything else from the committee? Any other business?
yeah, just one little point. One thing we haven't mentioned, I understand the reasons for it, I agree with it, is this whole, it's going to affect a lot of people on Kings Highway, on the renumbering of Kings High, of all the houses, which will be the first street in town. And I think it's unfortunate. It should come a little later so people at the holiday season could be informing people their change in address and all that. And January 1's a good time to cycle with your credit cards and everything else. But, it's happening and it's approved. But a couple people have talked to me about they wish it could have been, scheduled for the beginning of the year rather than this September. And I just said I would raise it, so I raised it.
I just want to clarify, Kings Highway is not the first street to be renumbered in this town. There are many, many other streets that have been renumbered already. We did have it planned for April, which we thought would be good for the seasonality. The issue was with COVID, and the state needs to upload their GIS data in order for Google and all those companies you count on knowing your address to get the updated information. Unfortunately, with COVID still out there, I'm not sure what this fall and winter looks like and whether the state will be operational. And we will have the same problem we had in March. So, that's why we made the decision to move forward with the September 15th date, thinking that would still give people plenty of time before the holidays arrived.
Okay.
Lori,
Thank you for
Lori, is there anything in terms of the revaluation? I know that that started and it was ceased because of the COVID-19. You put it on hold. Is there any information in terms of when that may start up again?
We haven't made any determinations. We haven't discussed it with the board. Part of the concern was we weren't sure what would happen to the market, and what we've seen is it's had very little it's had very little effect on the market, but certainly inspections and things like that in people's homes was a concern to us. So it's something that we'll be considering with the board, but we don't have any plan to start it up in the immediate future.
Okay. All right. Next meeting. What's your pleasure? I'm assuming for the moment that it'll be on Zoom, and we don't know that. It depends on whether or not the state emergency is still on. So it'll be a question of whether we're in the North Street Station or we're on Zoom. In either case, I need not a specific date, because it depends on availability if it's on Zoom, the availability of Dave and Mike, and conflicts with other meetings, and the North Street Station, it's, available dates. So,
Wonder if there are any issues that require us to meet before October.
I don't think there are. I was going to say, I think we've traditionally or often had meetings sort of once in the middle of the fall sometime, which has generally translated to October.
Sounds right
so,
to me.
beginning, middle, end of October,
And
which,
Well, yeah.
Yeah, the week of the 18th would be good. That's
I
kind
don't,
of late middle. No?
well, I don't think if things stay as they are, Jim is scheduled for some surgery that week, and I don't think I will be. I'm maybe fine on Zoom if we have to go to.
Yeah, but the week of the 11th could work. That's,
well, why not look at, there aren't any holidays in October, I don't think that we have.
Columbus Day.
Columbus Day.
Columbus Day, but,
We got rid of Columbus Day, so it's
Yeah.
okay.
That's now called Indigenous Peoples' Day, just so you know.
Yeah, I know.
You're right. You're absolutely
Good
right.
to know we're also politically correct.
Columbus Day would be the 12th of October.
that's correct.
What about towards the end, the week of the 19th or the 26th, depending on what's available?
I'm moving, leaving for the winter. I think that Thursday is of that last week. So if it was early in the week, it's fine. If it's, Wednesday, it's too much. I can't do it the day before I leave.
So you're leaving the 29th
I'm
of,
leaving whatever the Thursday is that week. So, yeah,
well,
I'm leaving the
there are
29th.
5 Thursdays, Jen.
Okay, the 29th. I'm leaving the 29th
Yeah.
of October. So I
Okay,
think the Monday, Tuesday that week, but I can't do the rest of the week.
okay. So Kate, the week of the 19th, you think is good for you?
At this point, as I said, he is scheduled to have surgery, I think on the 15th or 16th, one of those dates.
Okay.
And so if we're talking Zoom, probably maybe okay, but if I have to leave, and go somewhere else, I would not feel comfortable about doing that for the first 2 weeks after the surgery, probably.
Okay,
Or
well,
late period.
what I'm going to do is what usual. I will get some dates from Arlene or from David and Mike, and circulate them, and make sure that we have a quorum or more than a quorum to schedule a meeting. So we're talking about October, after the middle of October, towards the end, and I know that there were some issues for some of you.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Okay.
Anything else other than a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to thank Lori for coming to our meeting. I know she doesn't have to do it, and she could be home having a nice time instead of with us. So thank you very much, Lori.
Thank
you, Lori.
Second that.
Makes a difference. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Is
Second.
that okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Meeting's adjourned. And Lori, I also want to thank you for coming and putting up for this. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.